I had a script written out for this, but I wasn't very good at following it. So, try my best to ad-lib here. What I would like to say to Carl Sagan is that on your 67th birthday, I was born into a world that you've never known. And my first experience with you was actually finding you on a birthday website called Celebrity Birthdays or FamousBirthdays.com, something like that. And I must have been scrolling for a pretty long time because I finally came across a name, Carl Sagan. And it said you were an astrophysicist and an author. And I really loved writing stories. I filled up 6 notebooks of stories per year, and I really love space. So from then on, you became sort of the example that I would give whenever grown-ups asked what I wanted to be. I didn't actually watch Cosmos until I was around 13 years old, though. And at that time, perhaps like many other 13-year-olds, I was pretty bitter with all of the things I was starting to discover about the world. But in Cosmos, you said that we were made of the stars, and that when we speak for the universe, and this sort of cognizance can come out of chaos, and maybe there's a chance that we won't blow ourselves up after all. So that inspired me a bit, and over the course of about 4 years, I started to write a novel of my own that sort of built on these truths that you talked about. And then at that point, it was nearing your 84th birthday, and I'd read a good number of your books. I'd collected a good number of your books by then, but I hadn't read all of them. It felt like if I finally sat down and read the last ones, that would be the end. At the same time, I was afraid to finish the novel I'd been writing. It had been 4 years, and I just kept editing and editing over and over, never coming to a conclusion. But finally, I felt like I was emboldened enough to actually seek an editor. And what she told me is that it was a pretty good first novel, but nothing really commercially viable. So, about a month after I'd buried my novel, I made a sad pilgrimage to Ithaca, technically my college visit to Cornell, but more of a visit to see the place where you'd been, the place that had inspired you. While I was there, still sort of reeling with having to give up something I'd spent 4 years on, and still really fearing the ends of all things, the ends of my novel, the ends of life itself. As I was sitting there at the grave, I saw all the trinkets and the tributes that had been left for you. And I started to realize that we're cycles not just of mass and energy, but of knowledge and hope and goodness, and that maybe someday I could inspire a kid reading space books under the cover at night, just like you'd inspired me. That was about 6 years ago now, I think. And in the time since then, I entered Cornell and graduated from Cornell, and I visited your grave a few more times in the time since. And a lot of times I've left a letter on your grave. The first one I left was when I came in 2018 on my college visit, and in it, I said, "You're never going to read this. Feels a little silly to be writing this, but it didn't feel like I could come empty-handed." And even though I knew you were never going to read what I wrote, expressing how much you'd affected me and inspired me to pursue both writing and science in my life, even though I knew you were never going to read it, I actually, a year or so later, found that letter posted online, and there were dozens of people underneath the image commenting about how it really did matter that I wrote this, even though I felt like no one was ever going to see it. It really did matter, and it inspired them. And it felt like a character-defining moment, because even if the people that you want to really hear your words aren't able to, there's always going to be others who can listen. And I've tried to hold on to that, even though, we could have a great, awe-inspiring realization about the world, and then the next morning we have to go back to writing emails. But I've tried to hold on to that, even throughout the pandemic. When I first got to Cornell, I would sometimes come back to your grave, and one day I was sitting there, I was trying to convince myself that everything would be okay. And down the hill from your grave, I saw a deer standing suspended in a sunbeam as the clouds started to part. Thank you for everything you've done. So many of us still wish you were here, but it's up to us now. I'm hoping that we can still have science as a candle in the dark. Science as a birthday candle in the dark, maybe. Guess I don't have a good way to end this video either. I suppose I'll end it the way I have a few times before. And that my favorite quote from yours, from Contact, is, "For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love." And in my first letter to you, I still think it holds true, especially now, that I think sometimes the love doesn't just make the vastness bearable, but it helps to fill it. The Voyagers are speeding on through space, and space is vast, but that tiny little amount that they could fill really matters for something. And the tiny little amounts of the vastness that each of us can fill really matters for something. And so I'd like to thank you for helping me realize that even the tiniest, the briefest of moments really can matter. The amount we can connect with people, even for the briefest amount of time, that's something worth holding on to. Thank you.